What's up, party people? My name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today, I have a really interesting guest. She'll be coming on the show. Her name is Julia. She's the CEO and co-founder of Glender. Um, they do automatic at-source removal of protected health information from medical data. For 2 decades, she's chased problems that, in her words, have no straightforward answers, working the seam where computer science meets psychology, linguistics, and philosophy. With Glender, she has taken on the hardest one yet. Medicine cannot build trustworthy AI without data, but it cannot share data without betraying patients. Glender removes protected health information automatically and at the source from images, scans, voice, and reports, so research can move without privacy paying the price. 10 patents, 5+ years of building before the world was ready, and a stubborn love of stepping outside her comfort zone. I'm super excited to invite Julia. Hey, Julia, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on this
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, I'm excited to have you here. Where in the world are you calling in from?
I'm based out of Utah. Um,
Utah.
Now it's called Silicon Slopes. Basically, for everybody who likes to ski, this is one
Yeah.
of the best snows on earth.
Yeah, I grew up in Alberta. So had my hand at skiing, but definitely grew up with a lot of people who were diehard skiers. So you grew up around mathematics and competitions. What did numbers give you as a child that people sometimes couldn't?
Well, that's the interesting thing. Math is not only numbers. For example, for me, it was geometry, topology, and logic. Math is so many different things, all encompassing. What I loved about competitions is just you get together with a bunch of other people, and for 3 hours, you're solving really difficult problems. Actually, the problems are so difficult that the expectation is that out of 5 problems, if somebody solves 3.5 or 4, they're the winner. So it's a tough one, and it's a lot of fun.
And actually, I kind of skipped the gun there. I tried to do my best at explaining Glender, but do you want to maybe kick us off by just at least giving us a couple paragraphs or maybe a paragraph or two on Glender, what you're building? And, I've dedicated maybe the last third of the interview where we'll go deeper into it, but it'd be great to just let people know what you're building today.
Well, we are solving one of the biggest problems, which is any kind of research, or in particular AI, cannot be done without data. But unlike chat GPTs of this world, when it comes to AI in healthcare, the data that the models are trained on is somebody's private and personal records, and they shouldn't be shared willy-nilly or used for training as is. And that's the problem we're solving: how to detect and then de-identify so-called protected health information, PHI, which is the name of the doctor, anything which will identify the patient as from the data, and we detect it and then de-identify it, and thus helping research and AI training and all the other different use cases go forth.
So you've said you're drawn to the human machine interface, where code meets psychology, linguistics, and philosophy. When did that pull first show up?
Very early on. I knew what I wanted to do since I was a kid. So for me, it was no question.
Super cool. So Berkeley math, then Cornell computer science. Was there a moment you doubted you belonged in those rooms, and how did you push through it?
Well, always, right? Because that's the beauty of going to Berkeley or Cornell. There's always, or anywhere for that matter, there are always people. There's always people who know things much better than you, and that's the fun of it. But also, you always have sort of, wow, am I strong enough? But that's the fun, also the fun of it. The more um, difficult the situation, the better the growth, and the more exciting it is. Oh, Sunny,
Oh,
you
sorry.
want
I
to
was gonna
move?
say sorry. Building a serious career in AI 20 years ago as a woman, long before any of this was fashionable. took real nerve. I guess where did you find it?
I never doubted. And also, I grew up with people who do mathematics and other things. And for example, both my grandmothers have advanced degrees in engineering and other and other specialties. So for me, it was never a question. But yes, it is slightly weird. One of the sort of jokey stories I like to tell is that one of the classes in math, in it was quite a boring class, so it was very easy to fall asleep. But fortunately, I was the only woman in the class, so I never could
Mhm.
skip it. So yes, there are certain downsides to being in minority, but it's the question of just if you know what you want to do, then it's less of a problem.
And what's a risk that you took early that people around you thought was, foolish? You built, Did you mean, right, for Wikipedia across something like 300 plus languages?
For
And
that one, there was no question of foolishness. It's just a task that. So Wikipedia, it's very interesting. They always use their own technology, so-called bespoke technology, and they had their own search engine, and they were looking for somebody to help with the "Did you mean" capability. It's similar to what Google and others have, which is if somebody mistypes or doesn't know quite how to spell things or just not sure, then the system will say, "Did you actually mean this rather than that?" So that was the algorithm that I got a chance to develop. What was very interesting about it was because Wikipedia supports 300 plus languages. The algorithms, you couldn't do it for every single language. And so the algorithms had to be general enough to cover quite a big swath of languages. So in that case, it was, for example, several for non-Asian languages, one specifically for Asian languages. And we can go into details, but it gets very interesting. For each language, there are certain edge cases, but also we have certain types of languages, like in the West and the East. So I don't know how
interesting.
much your users want to hear about, your listeners want to hear about it, but I'm happy to dive into it more.
Well, I was going to ask you, so your pronunciation technology became part of Rosetta Stone, which I've used in the past. Can you take me to the moment you decided to sell that work and let it go out into the world under someone else's name?
Well, we built a company called Better Accent, and it was exactly what we meant: is how to help non-native speakers to pronounce things in their second language, because it's quite often hard to hear what one is saying, especially if one is used to a different language. But if you can see it, it's much easier. So you sort of convert prosody of speech, which is intonation, stress and rhythm, into into visible patterns on the screen, and that way give users additional feedback. It was a lot of fun. We had customers in 15 plus, I think over 15 countries. But at some point, it stops being the question of challenging technology. It becomes a question of customers and working with customers, etc. And for that, there are people who are much more well equipped than I to do it.
Makes sense. Interesting. So you've said that you love work that has no like straightforward answer, right? So I guess what scares you about that, and why do you run toward it anyway?
Well, I don't think I'm scared about it. It's actually that's what makes it challenging and exciting. Because if it's something which has already been done before, then it becomes a question of optimization. How it's a different problem set. But if you're solving something that hasn't been solved before, then nobody has the answers, and that's the exciting part. So I wouldn't say scared. It's more excitement. Like so there's some people are adrenaline junkies, and they go for high skiing off very high hills, which I don't do, but I really enjoy doing this.
Yeah, and what, like 5 plus years now building Glender before the market was ready. So what kept you going through those quiet years when no one was clapping?
Well, I don't think anybody ever claps anyway. So if you're if you're waiting for that, then good luck. It's an interesting problem. It needed to be solved. So we
Hmm.
spent time, and it wasn't just me, right? It's my entire team. We needed to be to for it to be solved. So we were working on it.
Hmm. And courage is kind of one of my favorite words. So I guess what is the bravest decision that you've had to make as a founder?
Stop doing what we were doing. There were a couple of startups that didn't make it, and it's
Hmm.
hard to sort of walk away because you
Okay, so
realize that it's not leading anywhere.
mm, yeah. in there too. So in kind of in plain terms, what does Glender do, and whose life is quietly different because of it?
Well, hopefully, it will help with healthcare in general because it solves one of the problems that is not obvious but actually extremely painful, and that is how to connect data with researchers without impacting patients. What I
Hmm.
mean by that is a lot of times, let's say it's an x ray, right? And somebody wants to use it for research. Unfortunately, the x rays, most of the x rays actually have patient's name and other information embedded into the image itself. That information is not needed in most cases, but it's in the way of making this x ray accessible for research, for AI training, for all these other projects that people are using the data for.
So now to get kind of like to get to the core question, right? So you frame healthcare's core tension as privacy versus progress. Why can't we have both without something like Lender in the middle?
Because it's always this dichotomy, the problem of if, let's say, you say, okay, forget privacy, we'll have access to all the data, will be good. That's ChatGPTs and others that work on publicly available data. That's how they train the models. AI in healthcare is stuck with this limited amount of data. And it's actually very interesting research. For example, pediatric data is not available for obvious reasons, just because it's very hard to make it accessible without making sure that you remove all the protected health information. But without access to this data, all the models, let's talk AI. Everybody's talking AI right now, so let's talk AI. All the models will not be so-called generalizable, meaning they will be working on the people they were trained on, but not on the world at large. And which actually means that if you look at the data of where the data is coming from, it's coming from the coasts, it's coming from a particular subset of population, and that means that the models that are trained right now are not necessarily transferable to other populations. We're not all the same, and that's very important to recognize.
Interesting. So there are over 1,000 FDA approved AI models. Most of them are trained on narrow data, right? So what's the
Yes.
danger that you're kind of like racing to prevent?
Well, that's right. There are quite a few models that are approved by FDA. However, if you look at the average number of installation, meaning how many places it's used in, the average, if you want to guess, or I will just let you know, it's one. Meaning it was trained on certain subset of population, it was applied to that subset of population. That's it. It won't be applied somewhere else. So if, let's say, it's trained on the data from New York City, it won't be applicable to a tribal clinic in Utah.
Got it. So you also warn that if we don't think these issues through, the decision gets made for us essentially by default, right? So I guess what are we sleepwalking towards right now?
Well, that's so-called responsible AI, right? How once again, right now, AI. At some point, AI goes up, goes down. So at some point, people will stop talking about AI. But for now, it is the subject of the hour. When it comes to AI, we need to be responsible in how we train it. Meaning, are the people represented in that AI, or is it biased because it's trained on some subset of information, right? And the a lot of conversations. I would refer other people to listen to those about this. But there's also how to use responsible AI, how to use AI, and that is how do we. What kind of questions do we ask? What kind of information do we provide to AI to make decisions? And there, privacy comes in as well, because you don't necessarily want to share everything with the AI model because you don't know where it will go.
So what's a belief about AI and privacy that you hold that most of the industry would push back on?
Um, I wouldn't say most of the industry. It's just something which is there's other things which are shinier and easier to discuss. But
Hmm.
the responsible AI portion with the privacy component of the responsible AI,
Got
how
it.
do we handle data? That's very important to think. It's not. It's much more difficult to think about, but it's something we need to think about. Otherwise, once this data is out, it's out. There's no way to get it back.
You like to step outside your comfort zone, even in choir practice. So why does discomfort matter so much to you?
Well, because it's how you grow, right? If you push
Mm.
against a boundary, that's how you grow.
So let's say 5, 10 years from now, how do you know you've succeeded, you've won? Like, what does a win
I
look like?
won't. I
Oh, you
won't.
won't? Yeah, right?
Nobody does, right? What is the joke is that what's the difference between tragedy and a comedy? It's where the like where it ends. So you never know.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for coming on the show. That's all the questions I had. You were, to the point, not gonna lie. It was, but it was enjoyable. And anything else you want to share if people want to get in touch with you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, reach out to us. It's calendar.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. But more importantly,
Perfect.
think of the data, your data and others. How is it shared? And most importantly, how is it protected?
Awesome. All right, Julia, just hang back for 1 minute. I'm gonna bring this stream to an end. Thank you all for tuning in and for everyone in the future. Until next time, take care.